Welcome back to Screenfish Radio. It has been a minute, and we are glad to be back as this week we are taking flight with How to Train Your Dragon, the 2025 remake. And I am thrilled to be traveling to the US tonight. The Trump may have dropped all negotiations with Canada, but we are still in discussions. Uh, with Heather Johnson. I am so glad that you're back.
I'm glad we could have these peace talks.
I never said they'd be peace talks. This is no,
We're still friends. No matter what happens, we're still friends, right?
yeah, yeah, I guess we are. That's fair. No, I'm really excited about this one. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Directed by Dean DeBlois, How to Train Your Dragon transports the viewer to the Isle of Berk, an island inhabited by Vikings. Led by the fierce Stoic the Vast, these Vikings live simple lives with one exception. They are plagued by fire-breathing dragons. However, when Stoic's son Hiccup builds a friendship with a dreaded but wounded Night Fury, the young man believes he has discovered a better way to live. Yet change is always difficult, and when the truth is revealed, the ensuing battle could threaten the lives of everyone in the village. As always,
Nailed it.
thank you. As always, this podcast is rated S for spoilers. But Heather, I know you're a fan of the franchise. What did you think of How to Train Your Dragon now?
Yes. So it's one of the whole series of the originals. I feel like everybody feels like they have that ownership of it. These are my favorite movies, or I was really touched by these movies, or I could relate to these movies. No matter how old you are, I feel like there's that level of ownership. So there was definitely that level of like trepidation going into this, because when you take something that is so beloved as an original animated film and turn it into a live action, it's okay, how low is the bar for me to consider that this would be a good movie? But you know, kind of as an entry point to our conversation is I still found it delightful. I've got thoughts around it, and I think there were, some opportunities that maybe were missed, but overall, it stayed true, sometimes almost too true to the original, when you're getting line by line, scene by scene. But ultimately, as long as the music is in there, I mean, we're all gonna love it because let's just face it, that score is phenomenal.
I am intrigued by that because if the bar is as low as the score, and
No,
it's like
that's not what I
they've
meant,
all
Steve.
been wearing party hats, and it's like didn't matter.
I mean, you've seen the videos and the mashups with that music, and it I think it's what made it kept the connection point for me is that feeling you hear when you hear test flight. Not that feeling you hear, that feeling you feel when you hear test flight. And you hear that, the build of everything, and you know exactly where you are in that scene. And in that movie as a whole. So they're definitely they stayed true to I think the points that really connect the audience with what is going on in the film. Um, and of course the music just does that phenomenally. But I thought, the casting was great. I know there was, everybody's always got conversation when you're taking an animated movie and turning it into a live action, is the casting right? And I think everybody, embodied their characters very well. And of course, seeing, stoic as stoic, that, that cornerstone of Gerard Butler, was, kind of kept it all knit together, knowing that it was him, and you kind of just can't get away from that voice. But I think it was pretty well done.
You know,
What about you?
I agree. I have such a weird feeling about this film, and you know, I really think that first of all, having Dean DeBlois, I'm not sure if I'm saying it properly.
How's your
He,
French?
my my French should be okay.
It should be.
DeBlois doesn't sound right, but um, having the same director back who has pioneered the whole franchise,
Hmm.
I think was a wise decision
Yes.
because what we saw here was somebody who cares so deeply about this film from a personal level, from personal experience, that they took the franchise with the seriousness that it needed, because this in many ways is the sort of film like, um I am not comparing the quality of films, but bear with me. This is their Lion King, their Little Mermaid, their Aladdin. And I'm not comparing live action remakes here. I'm just saying from the animated franchise,
Hmm.
DreamWorks, this is their uh prestige franchise, if
Yeah.
you will. So bringing him in, I felt he understood exactly what he wanted to accomplish. He brought the necessary look, the feel, the casting.
Hmm.
I had no issues with the casting. I thought the casting was solid. I on one level I kind of missed Hiccup's voice, but on the other hand, I was really glad this was it Mason Thames. Is that who it is? I
I
think
think that's how you pronounce it. Yeah.
yeah. He didn't do a bad, you know,
Mm-mm.
uh, Jay Baruchel impression, which he could have.
Yeah.
Um, but asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I have the weirdest feeling that I came out of this film. I'm like, this is really well done. The score is beautiful. The effects are stunning. The performances are good, and it's fine. I
Yes.
didn't I didn't come out of it saying this movie's phenomenal. And I admit, I mean, let's talk about live action remakes. I'm gonna throw it around. I came out of Lilo and Stitch thinking they knocked it out of the park, and not just. I think between the two films, I enjoy Lilo and Stitch as a film better generally,
Hmm.
but I have a high respect for this franchise, and I just came out of it saying, yeah, it was good, fine. Do you understand what I'm talking about here? What do you think?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm there too because I left there not disappointed. And but I didn't leave there blown away. But I at least could say, all right, I'm not disappointed in how that went. I'm perfectly okay with it. And it's delightful because the original is so delightful, but there's still, and this is something I struggle with live action remakes in general. There is a magic that comes from animation that I think we can't always recapture and recreate in a live action remake, no matter how good the story is, no matter how good the acting is, in my opinion. They're not live action remakes or whatever we want to call them are not my favorite thing. Um, but there's just something, there's a vibrancy that I feel like can get lost when you put humans in it. Whereas something like How to Train Your Dragon, yeah, the effects were beautiful. Like the dragons look like they totally belonged there. They did a great job of, doing whatever they do on the, behind the scenes. And that was, again, I wasn't disappointed. It didn't look cheesy to me or anything like that. But there's still just like, for me, there was that magic missing. The sense of wonder that I feel like can only be captured in animated movies sometimes.
But see that's fascinating. So you're nailing down the wonder to the vibrancy of it. Like I want to explore with this idea because I felt that there was tons of wonder. Like the flight scenes are stunning.
Yeah.
Like I genuinely thought they were thrilling. They looked beautiful. Um, and so but there was something missing.
Hmm.
And I wouldn't say it was the animation because I actually thought, I mean, okay, some of the dragons, like the one that turns fire or turns on fires, I thought looked better in the animation, but that wasn't what I thought it was. Like I actually thought Toothless looked so good that it
Oh
gave
yeah.
me that sense, right? But what is the wonder then? What you say, like, what is the sense of wonder? What is it? Just the visuals? What's missing?
Yeah, I think, and not so much like the animation in the sense of, you know, the computer or how they looked. But when you look at an animated movie in general, like How to Train Your Dragon, that is so the creativity that goes involved, the imagination that gets involved with it, because we're talking about
Mm.
bygone days and things that may or may not have existed. And when you try to put, I think, a human face to that, you lose some of that imagination because it's like we're trying to take something that is so not that we obviously we can be creative as humans clearly and individual in human film, live action film, whatever you want to call it. My daughter always asks, is this a real person, is this real, is this real life, when she's watching something that has actual people in it. um she's 8, so she can ask that question. But yeah, when you take
Tell her it's
something
just
and
AI.
it's just AI. Yeah, I'm not getting into that with my 8-year old. Okay, we're still working on getting dressed in the morning by ourselves. I don't need to explain very conceptual things like AI. I'm still trying to figure out AI, and I am not 8. But I just, I view that way. I feel that same way too with like other animated movies that we've turned into live actions. Like there's just when we try to take something that's so special, and maybe that's anything, any type of, remake or rebirth, if you will. Um, you
I see
know,
what you did there.
you see what I did there? Yeah, I
Yeah.
see. I haven't seen it yet, but I know what they're doing with it. I think sometimes things just get lost in translations when we try to put ourselves, into it, into something that was just so magical. And yeah, there's the awe-inspiringness. There is the wonder of the of those certain scenes and stuff. But there was just a spark still that I was so prevalent for me in the originals, in the animated versions, that I just don't think you can always capture with a human element.
See, I I I hear what you're saying. I think I would add something to it, and I think it would be when something's necessary. I don't
Hmm.
want to talk Jurassic World Rebirth, as we joked about there, but I thought Jurassic World Rebirth was solid, but we've seen so much that wasn't good. It's like, do we need it now?
Hmm.
So I kind of have a similar feeling with this one. And I admit from a practical perspective, it is not a coincidence that How to Train Your Dragon is released a month after Universal opens a theme park based on How to Train Your Dragon in
Hmm.
Universal. In fact, I saw a trailer for that right before I saw Jurassic World Rebirth for the theme park. We see all this stuff is tied together, but I think for me, and a lot of people are going to disagree with me, like everything I've seen online, not everything, but most things I've seen online about this have been saying, see, Disney, this is how you do a live action remake. Just give us what we wanted. And to me, that's just flat. Like
Yeah.
you gotta give us something, give us a reason for it today. Like Lilo and Stitch, the live action remake, if you will, rightly or wrongly, and I know there's been a lot of discourse about changes made to the script. The big sister wants to go off to school and that tension, but that's not what family is. I thought that was incredible. I thought this is a more like it's 2025. I need if you're gonna give me a film from 2003, it needs
Yeah.
to reflect 2025. Now, How to Train Your Dragon, I think, is interesting because I think one of the reasons it was so special is it was ahead of its time.
Hmm.
I really think that franchise, like that, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm sure I'm wrong, so please correct me. I can't think of a lot of other animated films that were dealing with social issues directly.
Yeah.
There were some. I think Finding Nemo does in a way.
Hmm.
But I mean, they were dealing with emotional issues. But this was a film that dealt with forgive me, I on the use of language for this, but I don't know the correct terminology for handicapped individuals or people
Hmm.
with a handicap, losing a limb and dealing with that. Like this was a
Yeah.
film that at the like 2010, films just weren't doing that.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't know, like I think that was what made it special. It was like, whoa, this is progressive for 2010. And I think there were some minor changes in this, but it just felt to me that it was like, okay, we hold this in such high esteem. We had better not screw it up like other people, like the Lion King one was a travesty. The live action Lion King, the first one,
I left the theater in that
it's
one because I
awful.
had two kids that were miserable, and I'm like, I'm leaving this
Like
movie.
it's truly unwatchable, right? But like I feel like sometimes they get scared to make any changes when it's held in such high regard.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know. This is what I think. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think to your timeliness, point, as in, do we need this movie? Or like, talking about the theme park opening, do we need that? I would challenge that because I think the deeper context of How to Train Your Dragon is still very much centralized around a conversation we still need to be having that is very relevant. And for me, and as we were preparing for this and I was thinking about it and stuff like that, um, what is that point? And I think when you look at what Hiccup does to bridge a gap of misunderstanding between two different species, obviously, in this case, we're still having those conversations now in our context of bridging
Mhm.
the gap between ourselves and how we may define the other. And we don't understand that person over there, so we're going to villainize them.
Hmm.
And or we're going to look at the wrongs they've done to us. The way, we're stoics, like they've killed hundreds of us, and Hiccup comes back with we've killed thousands of them. It becomes there's still this us versus them that is so prevalent right now that I think the conversation starters that can happen out of this movie are still very relevant, whether that's the intention or not. But you look at Hiccup's journey when he says, I looked at him and I saw myself,
Yes.
how important that is for us to look at somebody else that's different than us and see ourselves and not see them as something or someone over here that's just too different than us, that's just, wronged us too many times or whatnot. But to see ourselves in other people, I feel like is something that this world needs desperately right now. And I think that whether we're talking about the animated version or this live action version, that is still true for me
Mm.
for this movie. That conversation is still timely and it's delivered in such a way that it still gets you thinking. So I was happy to see that, what the core of it all, well, a lot of it is scene for scene, word for word. But that at its core, I feel like that's, to your point too, of what How to Train Your Dragon did then. I think it's an opportunity to do it again. It's an opportunity to do it again, just in a new context.
That's very interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way before. Of course, there's a relevancy in that regard. It's interesting. I would even hmm, I'm just thinking about this after you said that. The when I see him, I see myself.
Hmm.
I still wonder if it's far enough
Hmm.
because I think it's a good step in the right direction, but there's something about saying, "Oh, they're just like me," as opposed to recognizing they are not like me,
Yeah.
and I celebrate that. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
absolutely.
But you know what I will say, it's interesting too. And okay, I want to hear your thoughts on this because I don't know how this. Maybe I don't know if this is a we're ones to have this conversation or not. Did I miss it? Was there a conversation about privilege that snuck into this movie as well? Because
Yes.
that was new, right? That was
That
not from
was
the
that
original.
was new. The whole must be nice having perks to be the son of the chief, and Astrid's little addition to her backstory of how she came from nothing, and how she's didn't have anything handed to her.
Mm.
Um, there that was definitely you're yeah, that was there. Absolutely, that was there.
I think that
I
adds to that conversation as well. I think
it
that
it does. I think it could have been done differently. I feel like Hiccup was the wrong target for that
mm,
because it's very clear Hiccup struggles with who he is, with how people feel about him. He's not being lifted onto a pedestal. they're constantly bringing him down. So it's not privilege in the sense of, you know, maybe it is in that like you're getting away with things, but is he really? He's being made fun of. He's being picked on. He's being put up with. He's not being lifted onto like this pedestal. Oh, you're the chief's son. You can do no wrong. No, if anything, they're listing out everything that he does wrong on a regular basis. But I think I get where it was going. I just wonder if like Hiccup was the right, I don't want to say target for that, but the right, if you wanted to talk about privilege, was, I don't know, and maybe the answer is yes. But for me, it feels like since Hiccup was constantly being put down, even though you'd think it would be the other way around. Like, oh, we're gonna say all these nice things about him because he's a chief's son. Well, no, actually, he's a mess. And we're still gonna say he's a mess. So I didn't know where. I'm all for the conversation about that. All for the conversation about it. I think I would have come at it from a different angle with the characters as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. It's interesting too because even his dad others him like brutally,
Yeah,
and I don't just mean like they always have that sort of like tension, but at one point he says like, if you told me 3 weeks ago that he'd be here, I would have laughed at you. Which like,
yeah.
oh dude, he can't
It's
be
that whole
so
comment, we need
hiccup.
less of this. You just
Yeah,
gestured to all of me.
like it was next level. I was like,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. But I mean, at the same time, they make the point. I don't remember if it was Astrid or one of the other members of the crew that said anybody else would have been kicked off the island by now.
Right.
So I think there's again some validity to the conversation. I just would have, I think, do we try to fit too many relevant conversations into one movie as well? Because you don't want things to get lost. There's that whole other thing and the villainization of people or, that are different. There's the privilege conversation. There's the, physically, he and Toothless by the end don't have the same capabilities as everybody else there, with the exception of Gobber. Gobber can relate to that. But, how many, I don't want to see films try too hard either to where the importance of certain things get lost.
I wonder if that was part of the pressure of a film like this, because again, I
Yeah.
do feel like it was ahead of its time. Like this is, I think back, I'm not trying to pivot away from this, I'm just using it as an example, to when Disney did try to remake Beauty and the Beast. I think they did a much better job with uh the Little Mermaid, but with they made a lot of changes to Little Mermaid.
Hmm.
Um but for Beauty and the Beast and the Lion King, especially, I think you just got the sense that they were too scared to screw it up.
Hmm.
And with this one, I didn't get that same sense, and but I think it was a very much intentional conversation of
Yeah.
make this the way that you made this. So you want to add something great, but don't take away from what you already did. But
Yeah.
I do agree with you totally that the conversation of how we other people and how to bridge those gaps, I think is entirely relevant. I had not considered it from a 2025 relevancy perspective, but that's absolutely true, I think.
Yeah. And what you said too, seeing yourself in somebody else, it doesn't stop there. We have to
Right.
find that commonality and then be able to celebrate. And I think that's what, Hiccup and Toothless are able to do together as they build the relationship. Hiccup is able to equip Toothless to fly again. At the end of it, Toothless is literally helping him walk across the floor for the first time. And that we've got to be willing to journey to be like, I see myself in you, you see yourself in me. Now, how do we walk this together? Not just a pat on the back. Hey, I see you. We're buds now. But
Mm,
all right, now we've seen it to the point where we're doing life together, and your pain is going to be my pain. And when you celebrate, I'm going to celebrate. And the things that make us different can actually bring us and build a stronger society. Because look at the way the community changed because they leaned into what Hiccup and Toothless were teaching them and what they had
And
shown them to that level of sacrificial love for somebody so different than myself. They transformed an entire community for generations.
and Hiccup is part of the people who are the oppressors.
Yeah.
Um, he like that's one of the things I've always loved about Hiccup and not Hiccup himself. He's part of the oppressors. No, Hiccup and Toothless is that this isn't one person lifting up the other.
Hmm.
This is two people humbling themselves to come together in a way that is different. It was never like even in the original films, it's not used in a way of like it's that's not the word I want to use. It's not used in a negative context or whereas one person is like, I have to help you. It's
Yeah.
two people coming together, two lives coming together, and like you said, elevating one another when they
Hmm.
could destroy the other. Like
Yeah.
Toothless could rip his head off at any given time, but he doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you think about it, when Toothless flies into the arena and goes to protect Hiccup, and Hiccup tells him to stop.
Yeah.
And before he harms somebody else, like what Toothless wasn't just willing to defend Hiccup, Toothless was willing to stop his own nature
Mhm.
because of the relationship that he had built. And Hiccup did the same thing with all that had been ingrained in him of what it meant to be a Viking. He stopped that because of that relationship. So they both, put aside, you know, what probably, what came naturally to them or what had been ingrained in them for something that was so pure that they had forged. And it took patience. Like you look at Hiccup's patience with Toothless, literally the hand scene, waiting for Toothless to come to him. You know, how can we in real life, so to speak, since we're not animated characters and we don't have CGI
Train our
dragons?
dragons? Like, wait a minute.
I evidently sign me up for that list if they're there. Um,
You can go to Universal's theme park in
I
Florida.
can.
You
I
can do it
can. Let me
yourself.
let me do that. I'm not busy at all with let me leave my kids at home so that I can go fully enjoy that. So I feel like mommy's taking a trip. Um, but that we've got to be patient with each other too. And I think we see that Toothless is so eager once he's realized what's going on, but he still waits, or Hiccup, yeah, Hiccup is so patient once he realizes what's possible, but he waits for Toothless to come to him. And then once they do that and meet, you know, on different terms, it goes to what happens at the end of the second animated one. This is what it looks like to earn a dragon's loyalty. And I
Okay.
think that loyalty happens between the two of them because there's the patience, but also the willingness to, like you said, humble themselves.
Okay, so here's a question that we haven't discussed before, and maybe I'm taking this to the nth degree. Is How to Train Your Dragon a terrible title? Because doesn't that put it Toothless as his pet?
Hmm. Maybe it should be How to Train Your Human because we learned so much from the dragons. Maybe
Yeah.
it's how to train ourselves, right? Um, I think it's an excellent question. I've never thought of that. It's just always been How to Train Your Dragon. But at the end of the day, who's training who?
Well, that's what I
And
mean. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. That's just to that point. And not even that, you think about the word train, how to, whether you're training an animal or training a person, there's a hierarchy implied. Whereas with Hiccup and Toothless, that hierarchy, I think, gets broken down to it to where they're at this same playing field and they're feeding off of each other's strengths. And it's not about being trained. It's about peacemaking. It's about, like you said, it's about humility, it's about patience, it's about loyalty. Hiccup, to me, isn't really teaching Toothless something. He's helping Toothless discover a new way of flying. He's helping Toothless discover that he's still capable or rediscover that he's capable. And in turn, Hiccup is discovering a new way of life. So that's a great question. I don't know what else to call it other than How to Train Your Dragon, but it's a fair question.
Yeah, I'd never even thought of it until this conversation. I love the idea of it being about peacemaking. And
Mhm.
I think that that makes it, I think that does make it feel incredibly relevant for where we're at today. But how to make peace with your dragon, I mean, I feel
It
like
doesn't roll off the
it
tongue.
doesn't roll
And
off the
I know,
tongue.
you've got the book inspiration and things like that, kind of staying true to titles. But yeah, as you look at like, the next generation of people discovering this movie, I think it's still, if this is their first entry point into this series, I'm okay with that. Like I think it's still there. I'd encourage them to be like, you need to watch the original, of course, but like my 8-year-old absolutely and my 10-year-old loved it. They've seen the originals, but they've been around for them for all of my kids, but my 10-year-old especially. He was like, "I like that better than the regular one." And so there was still something about it that maybe as adults, you know, we want to analyze it and stuff, but for me, I feel like sometimes that magic was still missing, but for my son, the magic was very much there. And maybe that's something for me to keep in mind is the way I see things is not necessarily how the world sees things.
Well, that just sounds like How to Train Your Dragon. And now
Soon,
you're,
isn't
see, here's the thing, Heather. You're not Hiccup anymore. Now you're Stoic. And that's,
there? Now which is again the character development in this movie. You see somebody whose name is literally Stoic
yeah,
at the end of it be open to something new and different and appreciative of what he's been shown because somebody stood up and said the way we're doing things is not the way to be doing things. And there is that father-son tension, that parent-child tension, but it's beyond a hey, here's a kid coming into his own. This is a mindset shift that just
yeah.
so happens to be spearheaded by a teenager.
I love that aspect of this is it's
Yeah.
not, excuse me, it's almost not relevant that he's a kid other than the fact that the
Yeah.
dad doesn't take him seriously. This
Yeah.
isn't, like you said, the shift happens very quickly. I feel like Hiccup wakes up and the whole village has changed. Like unless he's been knocked out for about 3 months, I don't know how much it changes that fast. But still, it's a movie. It's fine. But I'm like, I appreciate the fact that, like you said, it's about mindset shift. This is a
Hmm.
dramatic change. It's not, you know what? You're a man now. I misunderstood what it meant to be a man, and now I understand. This is a complete like the way we've been living is wrong, and you're the only one that's gotten it right.
Yeah.
Uh,
And we're willing, but again, it took something very drastic.
yeah.
It took him almost losing Hiccup and thinking that he lost him, and it took destruction and sacrifice. You know, what I hope, as a parent and as somebody that, professes faith in Jesus is I don't want it to get to the catastrophe point
Mm,
to where there is no other way to see it because of the sacrifice. I want my kid, I want to see it now and to be like, I don't want it to take something so desperate for me to change my mind. I want to be open enough to be like, it's not going to take this ultimate sacrifice for me to see it. I want to be open to it now so that, you know, we're not, it's not this, oh, it took all of that happening for me to get it. No, I don't want to say that. I want to say I get it because I'm being open now before it gets to that
mm.
point, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And not me though. No. I don't want to be open yet. But when I get there,
Let me know, Steve.
Let me
Holler at
know.
me.
Oh, yeah.
Although this is not a good phone sign anymore, evidently, because nobody, the next generation, it's like this. They don't know what this means. We're old, Steve.
It's
We're
this.
old. And
It's
here we are
this.
talking
Shoot
about
me a
like
text. Shoot me.
exactly. But here we are talking about a quote unquote kids movie. But, you know, we've all got something to learn.
No, yeah.
We've all got something to learn. And I think, you know, this movie, this version stayed true to the lessons and to the conversation. Sometimes it just went very literal, scene for scene. Um, but I get it. You take something that treasured that everybody feels like they own a piece of.
Mm,
How do you do that well? And I think they did it as well as they could.
yeah. Well, I mean, that sounds like we need to ask. Uh, Screen it or skip it. How to Train Your
Oh,
Dragon. Screen it or skip it. We haven't done it.
we
Let's do it.
haven't. You have to screen it. You really do. There just to even if it's just to re-experience it, or if you never saw the original in theaters, because I didn't. I discovered these movies a little bit later. Um, Clearly they're foreshadowing bringing at least the second one to life. So with all the things they hint on and going into Hiccup's mother, they zoom in on the scar on his face. Like we know it's coming. So get out there and see it so that we can so that you're prepared because it's the next one's coming. But it's a solid foundation. You're not gonna regret spending $100 American dollars to take your family of six to the movies because everybody's gonna have a good time. Um, and just go into it just looking forward to seeing something that makes you feel good.
I'm with you. Um, Mostly, I would say, because I still feel like it's missing something. However,
Hmm.
having said that, I agree. This is what I said. I'm so conflicted on this because it's so well done. It's beautiful. I would even say like you could see this in IMAX and just be blown away by the flight scenes and the visuals. It's well executed, well performed, and but I don't think I have to see it. I think it is a wonderful family film. Don't get me
Hmm.
wrong. I think it is a great night out for you to take the family out, and I think it's a great film. I wanted to love it more than I did,
Hmm.
and
I think
that
that's
is
fair.
such a weird response for a film like this. Normally, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this. But no, it is very good. It is a very well done film, and I look forward to seeing more of them. I have no beef with it. It was
Yeah, I left not disappointed. So, but to your point, is many of all the things that I see out of it, there was still this little piece of the puzzle that I can't put my finger on that was missing to make it what I want it to be.
yeah. Which is the splinter in my mind, if you will, about
Yeah.
this film. It's like it's great, but it's like I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't
It's like
know.
it's still, but yeah, absolutely I think people should screen it. Go check it out. Take the kids. Take the kid that lives inside of you and, you know, but come out of it knowing that there's a conversation to be had.
I agree with that. And actually, I still think that this is a film that still flies. Like it still works.
Mhm.
And actually, after this conversation, I can see the relevancy at a different level, and I appreciate that because I think that is more appropriate now than I had considered, which I think. So it's good.
Yeah,
Go see it, have fun.
it is fun. It is a
It
fun
is fun.
movie.
Um, excuse me. My goodness. Having said that, a reminder you can find us wherever podcasts are available. You can go to the website, screenfish.net, for the latest in film reviews and upcoming films. And check us out subscribe to us on YouTube for interviews with, well, we even have Dean DeBloy, an interview with him on our YouTube channel as well, as we speak to filmmakers and cast about their upcoming projects. You can follow us on TikTok, Instagram at Screenfish Online. Find us. And but as all Heather, I love our chats. I really do. I'm so
Yes.
glad. Thank you for doing this.
Always wonderful. Always a blast.
It's always fun. And for you at home, we started the conversation. This was Screenfish.